The negotiations over Iran's nuclear program have highlighted Iran's role as one of the U.S.'s biggest foreign policy enemies. And while the Iran hostage crisis is often cited as the main reason for hostility between the two countries, to understand why it happened, we have to go to history. As with so many conflicts with foreign interests in the Middle East, you can trace U.S. hostilities with Iran back to oil, specifically the discovery and exploitation of Iranian oil fields by British interests in the early 20th century. The company that would eventually become BP produced oil there until 1951, when Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, with popular support, made the move to nationalize Iran's oil. While that failed to provoke a military reaction from pacifist British Prime Minister Clement Attlee, British interests largely controlled the export of oil from the region and effectively put Iran's oil industry in a stranglehold. That led Mossadegh to plead his case with U.S. President Harry S. Truman, but at a time when the country was in the grips of McCarthyism and with fears that Iran's left could push it towards the Soviet Union, Truman declined to intervene. That changed when two more hawkish figures took charge in the following years, Winston Churchill in the UK and Dwight D. Eisenhower in the US. The governments of both men worked together to support a coup in 1953 that deposed Mossadegh and installed Iran's Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, as the country's leader. In the intervening years, the US provided support to the Shah, a key regional ally against the Soviets, even as popular opposition within Iran grew in the 1970s. That opposition ultimately culminated in the revolution, which deposed the Shah in 1979. And when the Shah was then admitted to the U.S., which refused to hand him over to Iran, the hostage crisis began, and with it, U.S. sanctions. Those sanctions, which continued after the hostages were released, coupled with the U.S.'s support of Iraq in the brutal Iran-Iraq War, which raged for almost 8 years, all added to the antipathy Iranians felt for the U.S. Since then, the U.S.'s consistent support of Israel and Saudi Arabia has also pitted American interests against Iran, with the U.S. on the opposite side of what some have called a regional Cold War. So when the June 30th deadline rolls around to come to a final nuclear agreement with Iran, the negotiators have a lot of history to work around. For Newsy, I'm Sebastián Martínez.